Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the West Yorkshire Football Show and episode 2 of our non-league shows, looking ahead now to the 25-26 season. I'm Chris Bell. I'd like to say, as always, I'm joined by my fellow non-league lover, and that is Lewis Sale. How are you, mate? You well?
All good, mate. All good. I've never been called that before, but lovely, thank you.
I'm sure you've been called worse. I mean,
Absolutely, by yourself, yeah.
As always, a week is a long time in football, and especially across our region and the non-league scene. Where do you really want to start? I guess there's only one place to start, and actually that's probably towards the bottom end of our pyramid of the size that we cover on the show, and Goke United.
Yeah, a little bit of a surprise at Goke, Sky Direct Stadium. So obviously they've haven't had to, but they've replaced both Gav and Connor there in charge and replacing with former Huddersfield Town defender, which many people may be familiar with Joe Scars. Listen, the two Connors have done an unbelievable job at Goke, no doubt about it. They've basically built that club from what it was as basically a village club into what it is now, which is a promotion challenging Northern Counties East League Premier Division outfit. A remarkable job, but it'll be interesting to see how Joe does get on there because he has been associated with the club before. He's from that area. Maybe they feel that the time is right to make that step up. They have lost a few players in pre-season already, which will be interesting to see how they can replace them. But Gold could have, in our region, has been one of the standout teams for a long, long time. Have just, rocketed up the leagues, rocketed up the pyramid, and like I say, within touching distance of getting into the MPL. And I think the likes of Joe Scars and the rest of the team that is going to assemble there will be looking for exactly the same as what they've been doing over the past few years, and getting into that playoff, chase and possibly, challenge the likes of Liverpool for the top spot.
I mean, just kind of touching, of course, on the job that Ash and Gav Garner have done. They've been there, I think if I'm right remembering from the original statement that was put out, 11 and a half years, give or take. And as you say, they've taken them really from kind of that amateur leagues, the Yorkshire amateur leagues, into the pyramid for one. And then, as you say, in a pretty short space of time, not just established themselves as an NCL side, but obviously got themselves promoted up into the NCL Premier, and have then sustained that well and made the playoffs the same in both the last two seasons. Like the job that has been done there by Ash and Gav Garner is remarkable over the years.
Yeah, it'll obviously go under the radar because many people are probably not familiar with that set up, especially in the lower regions of non-league, especially in our region. But they've got historic promotion from Northwest Counties. They've been in promotions with league titles and cup victories and the rest of it. So they've pretty much done everything that they could possibly do to get Goke into this position now where it feels like it's unrecognisable from probably what it was, 11, 12 years ago. You go down to the ground now, it's, they do call themselves the Villagers, don't they, in terms of where they are, the location, they are constantly doing work on the ground to make it up to standard. I know they've been doing it again in recent weeks by adding a catering van and expanding the clubhouse as well, and adding a stand behind the goal. So, there's good things happening at Goke. Whenever we've been, we've always been made to feel very welcome, and it's a sign of where Goke have been with respect. And I was speaking to him midweek, and we're hoping to get him on like to Nicky Clee. Nicky Clee's had an illustrious career in non-league, and he's ended up playing at Goke United. But even 5-6 years ago, I imagine like Goke would have never expected something like the GOAT to turn up in the green and black. So I think, listen, they've done a remarkable job. It'll be really interesting to see where the club goes. It's going to feel very different. Those familiar faces coming in at 1:30 on a Saturday afternoon and running the training. They are not going to be there anymore. It's going to be a new figurehead in his team in charge, and he'll definitely want to put his stamp on the team. But listen, he's got connections. He's a very well-established coach in the region as well. Definitely have his contacts at the local clubs. Obviously, we'll know the likes of Huddersfield Town, where he's been, quite synonymous at as well. I think it's exciting for Goke. I really do. It's exciting times for him.
Yeah, I mean, as you say, Joe Scott, he's 35 years of age. He'll be familiar to a lot of, not just the non-league scene supporters across our region, but actually EFL fans as well, because he had a successful EFL playing career, came through at Huddersfield, played for Rotherham United. He's still, or he was at least, until the other day, a youth team coach at Rotherham United as well. I mean,
Yeah.
I put it in the group just how fast things can change in non-league football. 2 days before he was announced as the Goke United manager, he signed for Maltby Main, which is pretty close to Rotherham. Made a lot of sense for him to be able to continue his Rotherham under 18s academy job and play for Maltby Main. And then 2 days later, no longer playing for Maltby Main, suddenly the head coach of Goke United. You know, I said at the start, a week is a long time in football. I think 3 days in the life of Joe Scarts this week. It's been a long time in football.
Yeah, it completely sums up the madness that is non-league. Yeah, we were all expecting him to kind of put on his boots and probably help on that coaching side over in South Yorkshire, but obviously he's now being given that. I mean, how many times do we see that happen? I think some of the lads were probably surprised that we, chat with and work with on our show as well. We're a bit bewildered by how that can happen, but for us to, it's no surprise. It's like
this is the norm. Like,
what is wet? Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be interesting for him. Obviously, it's that transition from playing into the dugout. Obviously, for Goke, he played, I think he was 98 times for the Villagers. It's, he's got that kind of grounding. He's got that affiliation with the club and the supporters to give him, a good backing. He doesn't have to go in there and introduce himself to anyone. Everyone knows who he is.
Yeah.
It's now all about how he can transition from playing to kind of putting his own ideas across onto the pitch, I guess. But obviously, with the experience that he's had as a part-time coach at Rotherham United as well, that'll probably help him in abundance as well.
100%. Yeah, he's not going to be an unfamiliar face, like I said earlier. He's going to feel very different, but it's somebody that most people around the club will probably know of in terms of his playing time there. You only have to look at that division next year, and we said this last week, and we'll continue to probably bang this drum over the coming weeks, that, the NCL Premier Division is going to be very open. It's going to be very tight. There's going to be a lot of teams from our region challenging at the right end of the table, which is really encouraging. We did see that last year, and one of our teams did get promoted, and hopefully that will happen again. We've seen Liversidge pretty much overhaul their team, both on and off the field. Fackley are going to, again, having to overhaul their team on and off the field. It almost feels to me that teams are really testing the water and seeing how far they can push that boundary to get into that top spot and into the playoffs. I also think that you make a really good point about him being familiar as well, because sometimes consistency can be a real beneficial thing for a lot of clubs in this area as well. So for the likes of Goke, who have appointed a new head coach, if they can keep some stability within that team and add a couple, they'll definitely be up there, because for me, especially in that division, they're definitely one of the best teams in the final third, no doubt about it, if they're able to hang on some of their extra players that they've got. And obviously we'll mention some of those that have moved on recently, but you only have to look at that division campaign again, completely change a team. Eccleshill are likely to keep most of the team, but we've seen what's happened with them moving. Farsley Celtic still unknown. We've no idea. We've seen 2 board members leave the club since we last spoke, but again, no signs of what's happening on the pitch. You look at that division, and Goke stand an opportunity of getting into that playoff push for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Mixing it, of course, with the likes of Liversidge, who we talked about their recruitment last week and have signed well on the face of it so far. And obviously Sheffield do themselves want to kind of bounce back. So it won't be easy, that is for sure. But as I say, they are more than capable of getting themselves into those playoff places. If Joe Scarts can, nail pre-season, get the players in that he wants to get in sooner rather than later, and get that gelling ready to go at the start of the NCL season.
Yeah, absolutely. Hopefully they do. But it will be interesting to see who they do recruit. We've seen Adam Field and Daniel Nadola, who's been in around the club for quite a while now. Again, 2 stalwarts of the club. Adam Field being at Brighouse and Liversidge in the past. Daniel Nadola, who's been at Brighouse a lot. He's impressed a lot of people in his time, and he seems to find a settled home after his time at Brighouse now at Goke. So I suspect over the next 2-3 weeks we might see some more incomings there at the Sky Direct.
Yeah, wouldn't be too surprised at all. Let's move on then from Goke United. Let's make our way back up maybe to the top end of the non-league scene, then work his way back down gradually. The National League dates have finally come out. I mean, as somebody who's had a long-standing affiliation with the National League, both as a Lincoln City supporter and, of course, working as I do for Rochdale now, it takes them an absolute age to do the simplest of tasks. But they've finally got their act together and put out the key dates for the start of the season.
I mean, yeah. there's no other words around it, isn't there? I mean, I think the AGM for the Northern Premier League's happening, which we'll again touch on in a little bit, I think, over the weekend. So they'll be announcing the key dates. But let's be honest, we are a month away from fixture release dates and then another month on from the opening day, which doesn't give a lot of time. And with respect, the National League is pretty much League 2 light. You know, they're pretty much all full-time now in that division.
Yeah.
And they'll have to probably, abide by the transfer windows that are happening as well. And we're going to see over the coming weeks at the top of end of that pyramid where players are going to have to become available because of that domino effect that will snowball into these leagues. National League is that first sieve, so to speak, that, you'll get some of those players, maybe eking out of League 2 and possibly bottom end of League 1. That'll need to scramble around and find a team. We're looking at this and we've seen, in fact, some of these teams have gone back into pre-season training. And, you do start to look at these key dates and you start to get a little bit excited because it's close to it, but it's really close. We're not far away at all now. Promotion finals were, 2 weeks ago, I think? It's not far away at all.
And they were really late this year as well, it has to be said. The National League playoff final in particular was Sunday the 1st of June. It's usually at least a fortnight before that. But because of the way that, frankly, Wembley was booked, I think with the EFL playoffs, I think there may have even been England games prior to that. There was the Women's FA Cup final, the Men's FA Cup final. It just transpired that it had ended up having basically just the last thing on the pecking order was the men's promotion final, of course, that Oldham won, beating Southend United. As you say, the fixture release date, it always does my head in, though, just how late it is, because you are literally, look, 9th of July, fixtures release day, to find out who you're playing exactly a month later on the opening day of the season. It's not a great deal of time to prepare, really. It's not a great deal of time to even try, in footballing terms, for away days, as for a club that has to book 20 hotel rooms, it's not a great deal of time, is it? If you're away at Truro City on the opening day from Gateshead.
I'm going to say, it's not going to be ideal, is it? I mean, at least it's going to be, like I said before, it does feel like it's a mini version of a League 2, isn't it? I think it feels like, for the fans are kind of set around the rest of the year based around that and don't book your holidays between the 9th of July and the 10th of May. But like I say, it doesn't give teams a lot. And let's be honest, I'm saying this because you're having to do it. For some long trips, it's definitely very much north to south, south to north. There's not much in between. So, there's going to be a lot of mileage racked up.
Sorry, Lou. There is everything in between. It's literally Gateshead to freaking Cornwall. Like, everything is in between this season when it comes to National League North. It's bad enough usually having a couple of South Coast trips as well, because you've got to put Eastleigh in there over South Coast. I mean, to some extent, I think I'm semi-glad that it was Maidstone that came up rather than a Worthing or an Eastbourne. But to be fair, or even Torquay. But to be fair, I'd rather have gone to any of those than Maidstone bloody United, if I'm honest. But hey ho.
And Southend have stayed up in the division as well, so that makes it even better for you.
Yeah. So from Rochdale's perspective, we've lost the game 6 miles away, and Oldham are staying in the league that's arse end of Essex.
But it's all about you, Chris, so it's fine, mate. It's all good.
Look, you know that this is almost like a therapy session for me to air my gripes. And
it is. It's very cathartic for you, and I'm really making it not happen for you.
It's look, you haven't mentioned Huddersfield Town and Sean Rowan, so that's a good start, because if Downsy was anywhere near this, then
there's a lot of there's a lot of sensitivity.
I mean, let's talk Halifax Town whilst we're talking about the National League. As we say, we are less than a month away from fixture release day, less than 2 months away from the opening day of the season. Still no closer to finding out who's going to be the man in the dugout for FC Halifax Town.
None the wiser. We're none the wiser of who's coming on the pitch as well. It is quite typical Halifax Town, where it's very, very quiet during this period of time. We know from our friend Dave, he said exactly the same.
I thought that from the players, but thought they wouldn't have. I thought they'd been a bit quicker at getting a manager in place.
Yeah, and you know what? From what we read and what we hear and what we talk about, there's not many whispers around of who that might be. It's very, very much going to be done, I think, without many people knowing about it. And I think it's going to be those that might surprise a few when it does come out, because you do hear about stuff on the grapevines from people that we know of, but it's very, very quiet on that front. So, I mean, you're talking about releasing the key dates. We're talking about a club here who have been a playoff twice in 2 years, challenging to get promoted into the AFL. And at the moment, outside looking in, I don't have a manager, don't have a director of football, if that is the way they might want to go down. The pitch has been ripped up as we speak to be, re-turfed. Not many signings on the pitch. So when you do look outside in, doesn't look promising, but we know that somehow Halifax do get this together. But what I will say is, like I said about Goke, that will feel very different now Millington's gone, because we know that what he was capable of doing with the young players to develop them. Let's see who comes in. I would suspect, as we know that within football, you'd expect that person who will be in charge to probably reach out to players who they may want to join the club. But it feels quite late in the day, and I'm sure the fans, especially at Halifax Town, just want to know what's happening, because one, they need to get excited about the season. Two, the club probably need a bit of revenue to bring in from the season tickets. That'll help the season ahead, etc., etc. I would hope that Halifax Town start coming out with some news in the next week or two.
I've muted myself and I shouldn't have done. Ian makes a fair point with how quickly things happen in non-league football. There's rumours out that the new Shaman manager will be Joe Scarts. I mean,
very good.
He's put under the door at Colca, but you wouldn't write it off at this stage with the way things
Very
work
good,
out. I mean, Alabama makes a fair point as well that FC Halifax's first pre-season game is on the 5th of July, which is 4 weeks away, if that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's listen, it's gonna feel quite hectic. We talked about this, haven't we, in our shows with the other chaps. That it feels like it's gonna be a busy transfer window. Ironically, the window's shut, but we're gonna be opening again for various reasons.
With National League, it doesn't apply though, does it, at least?
But it still feels, like I said earlier, I think there's going to be a bit of a domino effect of players coming down, and they might not want to speak to other clubs depending on that situation. So, I do sense with Halifax that the sooner the better we'll come out with some news. Be great. I mean, I know they've got to keep some things ticking over, but posting a 3-minute video of some diggers going up and down the pitch doesn't entice, and excite fans a massive amount, and seeing no grass on there. Fans, as we all know, want to know news of players. I mean, I know what you're like with tractors.
No, I was about to say, my 5-year-old daughter loves tractors and diggers. She'd love a 3-minute video of diggers going up and down. But
well,
for the average Halifax Town fan, I imagine it's more infuriating than it is inspirational.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, let's hope we do come out with some news, because we do want to speak about them as soon as we can, really, because they are the flag bearer for our club in this region. Again, another club that have risen from the ashes. Unbelievable to get into where they are now, National League North. National League, sorry. I said that last week, and I noticed when I heard it, right, National League North. Don't know where I got that from. But yeah, they are that gold standard of what other clubs are trying to aspire to be. And like what we spoke about, Halifax and now got to decide where they want to go. Do they want to cement themselves in a National League, or do they go one step further and really push for AFL now? And that's a real conundrum and debate that is needed around the share.
Yeah, absolutely right. Right, making the point that apparently my daughter is in the target audience for this show. Fair point. Let's, as you say, Halifax are the top of our non-league pyramid, so let's move to the side that I'm currently second in that non-league pyramid. That's Guiseley. A couple of bits of news really to just come out of Guiseley since we were last on, at least. The big things, of course, we talked about Prince Polo last week with Craig, obviously, and Tom from Park Avenue. Jameel Leeblay, arrival, has also arrived at the Horsefall. He's left Guiseley. Joe Cracknell, the goalkeeper, he is signed up for the new season, which is very good, going after a good season last season between the in the sticks for Guiseley. And then Amir Birchall is the first new arrival announced tonight on social media. Of course, well known across our region of having a good season at Emley in the MPL East last season.
Absolutely. To kick off with to Cracknell, I think that's a super signing / retention. He had a really good season at Guiseley last year. He's finally getting some first team football under his belt after being understudy to Belshaw at Harrogate and then kind of being understudy there at Scarborough for a little bit. Now he's finding his feet as a number one, and you can see the qualities he's had. Previously academy at Bradford City and always had a little bit of promise, but now he's been trusted by Mark and Danny as their number one. I know that a lot of Guiseley fans were raving about his performances. We've seen the highlights from various games last year and games that we went to watch. I wouldn't say he kept him in the game, but he made some really important saves at big moments, which is what you need from a goalkeeper. Sound like Roy Keane, but that's your job in it, and he did it well. Amir Birchall, you know what? I'm really interested to see how Birchall does get on, and might be a little bit painful. I'm going to sit on the fence and make that judgment probably after Christmas. And the reason why I say that is, having seen Amir at the likes of Albion Sports and Fackley in his very early years, rapid, probably needed a little bit of physicality to his game, which is brought, absolutely. But that was his asset. And we saw that last year at Emley. Before that, he was at North Ferriby and he just couldn't get in the North Ferriby team. He made that step up and just couldn't really break into that consistent starting 11 on a weekly basis. He's gone to Wembley and he's wowed everybody in that first half of the season, took the league by storm. Richard Tracy knew exactly what to get out of Birchall in terms of his assets, which is on the counter-attack, pace, one-on-one against the wing-backs. That's what you're going to get in success. He got absolutely by scoring goals for fun, creating chances for fun. Second half of the season, I think he scored about 1 goal, which isn't a great return considering the start that he had. And I think people started to find out what it was all about. What I will say is, I think this is a really good move for him. I think it's a real opportunity for him to prove himself at a higher level that he's not played at really before on a consistent basis. He's got Mark and Danny who will be coaching him and mentoring him. And we know what good man managers and just people they are to get the best out of someone like Birchall, who definitely has the ability to kick on. I think he could be a little bit of an unknown quantity in that league for the first quarter, maybe half of that season, like he was this season. It's how he reacts to when people find out exactly what he's like in that second half. No doubt in his qualities, no doubt he can impact a game, which sometimes you need in these games, and tight moments that probably guys he struggled a little bit towards the end of last season. So if he can peak at the right time, we spoke about that league being quite wide open, despite the departures of Prince and Jamil to Avenue. The likes of Amir Birchall will definitely get bums off seats at Guiseley.
Yeah, so as we say, he's only 24 years of age, so he's coming. He's a good age. 18 goals last season, 50 games for Emley. So he's coming off the back of a season that, as you say, even though the second half wasn't particularly great for him individually, the fact that he played 50 games last season, he was a regular. He'll be fully fit off the back of that season and raring to go at the higher level.
Yeah, and like I said, I think he needs it. He needs to prove to the rest of this non-league region that he's capable of doing that. And like I said, I think he's got good people around him now. He's got a club that is pushing upwards to get promoted, which is a big thing. And to probably feel trusted by Mark and Danny, who've been at a higher level as well, that they see him as the right man to fit into the squad. What will be interesting is how they're set up in terms of the formation and the style of play. We know that Danny and Mark are very pragmatic in their approach and how they go into games. They're not kind of a possession-based team. They like to do things in terms of people having set roles, disciplined, organised, a real good team spirit, and sometimes they grind out results. Now, when I've seen Birchall, and this is no disrespect to him at all, because I think he can suit a team depending on how they're set up, he seems to do better on the counter-attack. In terms of winning the ball from set pieces, hitting the wide man, and then he can go. He can either get in the box or he can run the length of the pitch pretty much and then set somebody else up or get an opportunity to score himself. That kind of possession-based football doesn't always suit him. So depending on who guys he might be playing in the circumstances are in, it could benefit him and it might not. But it's clear to see from those of that know the game in our region that that's his qualities: speed, pace, acceleration. That final third, he can have that cutting edge. It's can he do it consistently at this level now, week in, week out, and do something that he unfortunately just didn't have the fortune of doing at North Ferriby.
Yeah, well, time will tell. Wish him the best, and on the face of it, looks like a very interesting sign that Guiseley have made there. Let's move on from Guiseley and turn our attention to the sides across the NPL East, and we'll start with Ian's question, which you put right at the start of the show. One for you, Lou. How many players have Bradford Park Avenue signed? Seems like a complete overhaul of the squad. And there's another one that been announced tonight as well.
Yeah, good question, Ian. I don't know if I've got that many fingers to count, but so Avenue, I've made several signings. Trying to remember them all. So Jack Hall in goal, who was on loan last year from Sheffield Wednesday. He's got released by Sheffield Wednesday, having a second loan spell at Bridlington. In the last part of last season, he's re-signed at Avenue. We mentioned, obviously, Prince Polo Jamila Bill from Guiseley. Probably the standout signings, along with Marcus Carver, who's the striker that many people will know of at Southport and Chorley. Luke Parkin is left Emily to go to Avenue as well. Danny Ellis has joined as assistant manager. Everybody knows Danny from the Bradford area, but he's been at Farsley, Liversidge, Harrogate, you name it, he's been there. He's a proven winner.
How have you missed Guiseley out of that list?
And Guiseley. And then recently also just adding into that is Charlie Winfield, who's been a left back who was on loan at Bridlington from Worksop. He's joined the club. There's a few retentions there: Matt Beavers, Josh Ashman, Connor Shanks, Paddy Sykes, and then most recently Avenue of Miles of Bastide, and into that has been the recent signings of George Doyle this week from Goke, who we spoke about earlier. Scores goals for fun. Again, he's another striker who's got a lot to prove at a higher level. He scored goals wherever he's been. Previously starting off at Emily before a short break in Australia, and then going back to West Yorkshire to Goke and scoring, I think, nearly 60 goals across 2 or 3 seasons. And then tonight, just before we came on air, so we just had to update the graphic, Lewis Charlton, who was on loan at Avenue a couple of seasons ago from Hull City, is joined the club from Ponty. So Charlton was initially a right back, and he's now developed into almost a right winger, which made sense because having seen him a couple of years ago, very raw, very young, but he lacked a little bit of physicality in that position when it was, really needed at a higher level. Ponty got hold of him after he was released by Hull and have made him into a really good right winger. Whenever I've seen Ponty, they've used Charlton to the advantage. Again, very quick, agile, and his deliveries are actually very good. So that's been agreed that Charlton signed for Avenue, so the 22-year-old comes in at the Horsefall. So yes, you're right, Ian. It is pretty much an overhaul. Like I say, with 4 or 5 retentions in there, I suspect. There's Connor Qualter in there again, who signed. Trying to think there's anybody else. Might have missed somebody, probably have. But it feels like it's. You're right on the bang. Yeah, definitely not short of defenders, but it feels like it's something that Craig Elliott wanted to do. We spoke to him last week and got an insight into what he wanted to get from his squad this year. It feels like he's getting there. I wouldn't be surprised if that's not the end of this, signings that come at Avenue. But again, it's going to be a very tricky balance of, 1, keeping everybody happy, and 2, building a spirit amongst the team. And also, let's be honest, 3, to push for promotion, because that's often what Craig's in the game for, and that's what we all want as fans as well. Matt Lockett is spending big bucks. We know what's going on there. Only this week, we've announced a raft of improvements to make around the stadium as well, which will require heavy investment. So Avenue and the likes of Emily and Garforth in our region, Ossett, Ponty, etc., are having to compete against. And that is, I don't think we've probably seen this kind of calibre of team and calibre of players in this division, I'd say ever, if I'm being honest, from Matlock. They are the ones to beat, which puts them on a big pedestal. But this division takes no prisoners either. We've seen last year some players have dropped from lower divisions and have just been unable to kind of mix it in this league in terms of physicality. And sometimes the level of football dictates how you play. But yeah, it feels very different at Avenue. Like I say, friendlies get underway soon. We spoke to Craig. I think he's getting the lads in for pre-season early July, isn't he? So it feels like probably 80-90% of that squad will be up and ready to go, and there'll be a smart enough trialist, like at every club, trying to impress as well.
Yeah, it's certainly been a busy window so far for Avenue. I'm sure it will continue to be, as you say, in the coming weeks. We'll quickly go and run through a few of the ins and outs across the region. Sam Pashley joining Ossett.
Yeah, you know what? I like Sam Pashley. Saw him at Emily at right back, and I've liked him a lot. I think it's a really, again, shrewd signing from Wally. Wally will know him from his days at Emily from playing there. He fills a gap that I think Ossett just lacked a little bit last year, a bit of solidarity in there and a bit of physical know-how. He knows this league, he's local. For me, it's a perfect fit for Ossett. I think it's a really good signing from Wally. And again, you know, it epitomises what kind of squad he's building without getting any, without disrespect, superstars in, but he wants to build a squad and a team together. And I think that's a really sensible signing from Wally.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before we carry on, actually, I'm just going back to Ryan's extra question regarding Bradford Park Avenue, because actually I forgot about this. One of the other news pieces ready to come from Park Avenue in the last couple of days or so is the announcement that there is going to be a Bradford Park Avenue reserve setup, a proper reserve setup for younger lads to kind of come in and join. And obviously, Ryan Hedges, what's your thoughts on it?
Thoughts are, it seems like a reasonable idea from Avenue. The proof will be in the pudding of how successful that will be in terms of being able to be a little bit of a comfort blanket for those who may be in rehab for injury, and also those that are slightly older than that academy range and scholarship range who fall out of that category now. Because I think that is one thing where Avenue are trying to try and bridge that gap, because it does, these players just fall off, unfortunately. There's nowhere really for them to go unless they decide to really kick on, or they've got educational studies elsewhere, or basically get another job outside of football. And being honest, at this level of football, it's hard to get full time unless you really stand out. And if you do stand out, you've probably picked up enough from either the club or elsewhere. I would suspect that Owen Murphy, who I know Murph well, who's played in this region a lot in terms of Albion sports, and last year at South Leeds as well, and locally, he's going to have to work very close in hand with Craig. I wouldn't suspect it's Craig's top priority, if I'm being honest. But what you'll want to do is keep an eye on that reserve squad and see who's impressing, who's doing well. Is there anybody who may help out in terms of helping out in the first team training? Is there anybody that's really setting it alight? But the gap between the division, obviously what we're going to be, and I think is it the West Yorkshire League Division 2 to the Northern Premier League East is massive. It's a huge jump. So it's going to be one of those that I think the club will do from a community aspect of and retaining good quality youngsters and building relationships with teams, and that's healthy. But in terms of affecting a
I think that just about came through. There's one or two issues, I think, with the Wi-Fi. I can't tell if it's at my end or yours. You seem to be moving now, though. I think you may be back.
Unfortunately, Chris may have just lost.
Can you hear me now? Are you there, Lou?
I think we're back. Somehow the connection completely went for me, and I think it went for you, mate, as well.
Yeah, I mean you're frozen mine at the moment, but that's okay. We'll plow on as best we can, and do what we can to carry on. I will just throw another couple of bits at you then, and let you kind of go off and hope the connection stays. Silston, a couple of retentions for them in Mo Conte and Toby Jeffrey.
Yeah, solid from Silsden. Like I say, probably expecting them to recruit come July. But I think the drip feed of news that retains like some more countries had a breakthrough season. And Toby Jeffrey again, who's come from the likes of Steaton, steady signings and retentions from Silsden, and they need that core to really help them through. But we know that, pretty sure that the likes of Cav have definitely put the fingers in the pies around the region to get some of those quality up there at Demdale.
Yeah, very much so. A couple more. Kivi, Taran Gadzo, and Isaac Aqua are both signed on again for next season at Brighouse Town as well. I'm sure Grant Black more than delighted to get them nailed down.
Yeah, absolutely. Keeps your options open for Black there, and the rest of the team. And Danny Forrest, Danny Forrest, definitely not Danny Forrest, Danny Frost. But yeah, I think Taran Gonzo from a centre back perspective in this division, he's good. He does all the stuff you want your centre back to do. He'll head the ball, he'll clear the ball, he'll tackle people. He's very, very physically strong. He's just one of those players that he's just invaluable for your teams at this level. And the Brighouse, we know, have struggled in recent seasons. You know, they've survived a drop twice, and they need players like that to do the job. So, yeah, shrewd again from Grant. And I think it keeps that core local as well, because we know, like I said, he does tend to recruit players from kind of that South Yorkshire way, but the likes of Kerry and Isaac there are local, and that will help the team.
Yeah, Ollie Russon has joined Pontefract Collieries. They have lost Mikey Dunn, though, who's left the club to go and join Armthorpe Welfare.
Yeah, I like Ollie Russon. I like him a lot. He's one that I've seen over a few games as well, that he's got bundles of energy. He seems like he's a really good fit for John Williams there at Ponty, who obviously will be playing at Ossett because of the pitch, which, again, if you check out their social media, has been dug up like Halifax. I like it. I think it's a really good signing. I think he'll do well for him. I think Goke, listen, like I said, they've lost Russon, they've lost Doyle, they've lost my client Philip as well. They're going to be a little bit decimated, which is what Scars, we mentioned at the top of the show, has got to rebuild a little bit. But Ponty, I think, could do all right. And have signed Frankie Sinfield as well tonight, who has departed Halifax, which I think is another good signing. He's been on loan. I've seen him on loan at Fackley. I've seen him on loan at Ponty, and obviously returned back to Ponty. A real tricky winger who likes to cut inside both angles, really, and put good crosses and deliveries in. Maybe not one who will score you bundles of goals, but he's a live wire in there. And he needs to get that first team football. And I think somewhere like Ponty will suit him really well. And he's known there, people liked him from his loan spell last season. Seems like a sensible fit again. I think there's a lot of shrewd signings in around the region, which is good to see.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think the final from the MPLE side of things is Garforth. And the reason that I've kind of left them to last is because there's actually a little bit to get through with Garforth, it seems. We'll start with the farewell, the departure for them. It's the popular midfielder Sam Barker. After 175 appearances and 50 goals, he's left the Miners.
A really, really good player. And for a player who, being honest, isn't the tallest of players, if I'm trying to be diplomatic.
Diminutive. There we go. That's the word you're looking for. He's a diminutive midfielder.
That's probably the word. 100%. It's the best way to describe him.
Like
a real nuisance.
Claude Makalele, you know.
That's it. Yeah, a real nuisance in the politest terms as well, because he's a player that you really don't fancy playing. Like you've mentioned there, and also make an analogy, God bless him, like Rob Burrow in rugby league. It's that kind of, fit as well, where he's just sharp, he's agile, he's quick, he gets in the spaces that you just don't want to get into. He'll create chances, he scored goals. I know he's, in inverted commas, been a bit of a legend there at Garforth. And I will be surprised if they're able to replace somebody like that. Yes, they've had a couple of retentions and have signed players in, but he had something to Garforth that not many players can actually do. So that's a difficult one to replace Paul Marshall. And they've been used to playing him week in, week out as well. I know he's had a few injuries recently, but they've been successful when Sam Barker's played very well.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you've seen anything that I haven't, but I haven't seen anything to say where he is going in terms of moving to pastures new as yet.
No, not yet.
But on the incomings front, some firepower in the building for Garforth. Luke Aldrich, who had 15 goals last season for Sheffield, who were, of course, relegated from the MPLEs, but to get 15 goals in a struggling side bodes very, very well, of course. And then the other man is Nick Heppel. Another striker. In fact, according to the article that Garforth put out, he knocked them out of the FA Trophy last season, playing for Wythenshawe Town. He's been around the Northwest quite a lot with the likes of Kendal and Witten Albion, but he's going to make the move across the Pennines to Garforth and join up with Paul Marshall's side. So, a couple of decent looking attackers joined there. In particular, I'd say for me, the fact that Luke Alder got 15 goals in a really poor Sheffield side last season. If you can get the service to him, suggest he'll do well.
Old school number 9 is Luke Aldridge. Big lad, likes to get his head on stuff, links up play really well, put the ball into the box. He's a pain in the backside for a lot of defenders. I remember seeing him at Ecke, and you'd have seen him as well there. And he did well to make that step up to Sheffield. Let's be honest, probably not blessed with a lot of pace, but as a proper number 9 target man at this level, does the job. And again, I think Garforth are probably going down a little bit of a different route. I know that in the past they've had that kind of player that is a bit of a prolific number 9, and they'll be looking for that from Aldridge. And I know that in recent weeks there were a little bit of noise of Nick Apple coming around this region again. Previously been at Witten Albion, like I say, at Wythenshawe Town as well. I think last season finished up at Chadderton. So, and he knows where the back of the net is. Our friend of the show, Chappers, knows him really well. When he was at AFC Blackpool, and he raved about him, he says he just ripped Steaton apart. He's got a younger brother, but Nick was the better one. And I think that in terms of goals and the chances that Garforth create, he's definitely feel like it's a sensible one. And Paul Marshall, we know he's old school, but it works well for him. It's that kind of analogy of having a big man, diminutive manager, might want to say, Naki Wells, Jay Manson kind of type up front, put the grasses in the box and let's see what happens and mix it. It's not the easiest of pitches. They're doing a lot of work down there at Garforth to make it better, which it probably needed. But it seems, again, like I mentioned earlier, some really steady recruitment, and somebody in this area like Sir Paul Marshall will get absolutely the best out of him. And if they're going to be probably roundabouts where they were last year, he's probably hoping for at least 10 or 15 goals from each player. And if that is the case, they're actually probably knocking on the door of the playoffs.
Fingers crossed, fingers crossed. Let's turn our attention to the NCL. A couple of new arrivals in our region. Mark Everingham has joined Liversidge from Thackley, and Reece Ellington has joined Route 1 Rovers.
Yeah, so another Thackley man going to Liversidge, and Danny and the guys will know him there. Reliable fullback, can play both sides, right and left. May not potentially be starting every game, but what you'll get from is a little bit of leadership and a bit of stability. He's one of those players that will probably get you a 6 or 7 out of 10. And in terms of your squad depth for the rest of that season to get out of the league, kind of players you do need. Reece Ellington, many people will remember him, again, from his early days at Bradford City. He's been around the West Yorkshire region quite a while in terms of Ossett. I think last year he ended up playing at Sheffield FC along Luke Aldridge as well. And Route 1 Rovers are really going for it. We spoke about it, Chappers, didn't you, that it feels like it could potentially be a bit of a breakthrough season back at Maya Rocher, and to attract the calibre of Reece Ellington to hopefully mentor some of the younger lads that are there and get the best out of them. Again, feels like it's just a move that just seems to be right. I hate sounding like in a broken record, but you see a lot of these signings, and outside looking in, a lot of them make a lot of sense. Yes, you're going to get some players who are going to move around to different clubs and may just kind of be there maybe second or third time, but you just feel that managers have looked at the situation around the league and in their own team of what they really need to build on, and getting that right calibre of players with a small catchment area. Yes, we do have a lot of clubs in this region, and it is a thriving region in terms of non-league, but let's be absolutely honest, it's quite a limited pool of players. When you look at what's happening, especially in the northeast and kind of that Midlands area, and especially down the south, where geographically it's stretched so wide from left to right, right to left, we do have a limited pool of players, so there's only so many players that can go around into different places. But what I will say is I think Route 1 Rovers are going to be challenging likes of Wakefield for that top spot. I expect Route 1 to be really strong next season.
We will see how they get on as the season unfolds. Lou, any other business from you? Anything else that's kind of caught your eye from across our region, or are we ready to wrap this one up for this week?
I think we're ready to wrap it up. I'm just looking to see if there's anything happened since we've been on. Nothing's come through yet. I've had no messages either from others. So, yes, I think we're all up to date. I know that we're working very hard out with behind the scenes to get some guests on. Spoke about one earlier. We're trying to hopefully get a few more on to keep everyone entertained. But, from our first show, and I'm sure you'll echo it, we had some really good interaction, didn't we, with some really good views on it. So do just check us out on our playlist on our YouTube channel. Do subscribe, do like a video, do spread the word, because we do like to give everybody the update from around this region in terms of grassroots football, because it is very healthy, it's thriving, and I think what's really great to see, which we will hopefully see those fruits of labour come to fruition later on, is a lot of these teams are going to be challenging at the right end of the table next season. So we've got a lot of teams playing each other, a lot of West Yorkshire derbies, and it'd be great to see a lot of you in there with ourselves. We'll be there thereabouts as normal and reporting on it.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't forget to like and subscribe on the YouTube channel. Just quickly didn't touch on this comment that's just come through from Robbie. He says, your daughter's recently moved to Farsley from Guernsey. Is Farsley still going? We haven't touched on Farsley, and we didn't really touch on Farsley a great deal last week either, and kind of with good reason at the moment. We touched right at the start on the fact that the only news to come out of Farsley for about the last month was last week, just after we'd done our first show of the new season, was that 2 of the directors had stepped away from the club. That was it. Nothing since.
Nothing since. No, there's not much. Again, what we said last week, Robbie, if you're able to tune in, it's great to have you on board with us, but it's one of those where we don't know what we don't know. It's I know Guernsey well. I know Guernsey well. It's a beautiful place. Not saying Farsley isn't, but it's definitely still going as far as we're aware. Obviously, we are in that North East Counties Premier Division as they're due to start next season. And it would be good to get some of the guys who were at the club and getting some news out from the club to find out exactly the state of play. If you do look on their website, obviously they updated fans a few weeks ago on how the situation is, which, let's be honest, hasn't been great, no doubt about it. But again, we don't really know anything in terms of where they're playing, exactly the manager, the state of plays that's going to be. But I suspect it might all come at once, because we were used to seeing news from Farsley pretty much every day, multiple times a day. So even though there's no news, it's actually it's an interesting dynamic. I think it'll come out soon.
At some point, somebody's going to be extremely busy from the Farsley social media team, it's fair to say. Because,
absolutely.
I mean, look, as it is, just to kind of clarify things with Farsley at the moment, for Robbie, obviously they relegated from the National League North last season, finished bottom of the league. They were denied entry into the Northern Premier League, so they've had to skip 2 divisions of relegation and have dropped into Northern Counties East League. Yeah. As it is, we have no confirmation that David Stockdale, who was the manager at the end of the season, the former Brighton, Fulham, many EFL clubs as goalkeeper, he was the gaffer at the end of last season. No confirmation if he's staying on. No news regarding any player signings. No news regarding, frankly, any of the players staying on, but that was basically the academy side that they finished the season with due to the implications they had there. So, yeah, there's a lot still to be unveiled regarding Farsley Celtic, as you say, including where they'll actually be playing, because there's no work that I've seen started at Throstle Nest or at the Citadel. And, yeah, it's going to make for a lot of news, I think, in the future. It's just getting to that point. I mean, we said before about FC Halifax kind of leaving things late by appointing a new manager. Farsley even further behind than that, it seems. So time will tell. Couple of things as well. Ian says, is there any new news on Eccleshill United? I did see an article in the Telegraph and Argos in which Lee Elam was saying that this move to Marley Park, sorry, not to Marley Park, to Cougar Park, is going to be a good thing for the club.
Again, time will tell, won't it? I know your thoughts on it, but I think it was an interesting interview from Lee Elam, because obviously he's been there. His first spell was very successful, and in terms of being successful, getting into that playoffs and really pushing it, he did really, really well. But I also suspect that there's going to be a little bit of movement. I think you might see some players maybe move sideways or in around that region, which we spoke about. They might be able to catch a place from back almost northwest way, Skipton, Colne way. But in terms of weird anything, not really, if I'm being honest, Ian, not much other than what we've heard and what we spoke about last week. And if you follow our socials, Chris is now a TikTok viral superstar to debate. But again, it's one of those where I think there's a lot of stuff happening in the non-league, and we've covered it over the past couple of weeks, and it'll only get busier. I'm not tempting fate, but I suspect over the next month it's going to get even noisier of what does it look like for Eccleshill. We're seeing clubs now release, pre-season friendlies. We heard Eccleshill, I think, still are going to play at Kingsway rather than Cougar Park. I think likes of Camping have released their pre-season friendlies tonight as well. Ponty, I think, have recently done it. Emily are playing some big names of likes of Huddersfield and Barnsley. So these clubs are just drip feeding to make sure that people know that they're still relevant, they're still around, they can sell season tickets, the new merchandise is probably going to go on sale with new shirts as well. So the likes of Eccleshill have got a massive job to do because they're not in their usual catchment area, and they've got to almost generate a new fan base from a fan base that was probably, 60, 70 deep, and I wouldn't expect all of them to move over to Cougar Park. So you're having to, not restart, but not far off. So I think, it was really interesting to read what Lee had said in a TNA in our local press recently. But I think Eccleshill have got a bit of marketing to do and a bit of promotion work to really sell themselves because, one, they'll need it. And two, it's a very, very competitive division that next season, which we've spoken about with various clubs, and they can't afford to be left behind. If the move was to take them that level ahead and forward where they need to be, it's got to be done pretty quick because there's some teams in there who are recruiting very, very smartly.
Yeah, it's been mostly, just looking at their social media for Eccleshill of late, mostly player retaining players that are staying in recent weeks. Faris Khan, Jordan Morehouse, Sangster, Idris Atta, Callum Bradbury, for example, amongst them. Will Morrissey, I think, has joined, as does Alassane Keita, the experienced striker, who's been around this neck of the woods. But as you say, it's all about the big news, I guess, is kind of all about the stadium move. I mean, Ian's kind of followed up with what's the reaction being around Rose, and it's a weird one. It's not a community that's, nobody kind of protesting outside Kingsway, put it that way. But I was when I went and got my haircut last week in the barbers, it was the talk of the barbers as well, which is just just down the road from where Kingsway is. So there are people that are still baffled, and there's still people that are cautiously optimistic, I think, but time will tell.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that then. Let's wrap it up there. A big thank you to everyone that's been in touch, getting the comments in this evening.
Absolutely.
If you have caught us midway through the show, do feel free to go back to the start and give us your comments and views on everything as well. You can catch up on YouTube, of course. You can like and subscribe as well. We are starting to put little, I think, playlists they're called on YouTube, where we'll be putting specific shows in certain places, so it's easier for you to find, basically.
Absolutely. We try our best. I mean, like I say, you are a social media viral superstar, so you should know all this stuff, Chris, as you well know, getting them thousands hits.
It's all just Brownie badgering me, saying, make sure you tell people to like and subscribe, but please do. It makes a really big difference.
It does, absolutely.
To us. It really helps to kind of promote what we do and help, therefore, promote what our region is doing when it comes to the non-league scene.
And it's great that we're getting this community tonight. It's been really good to see a load of you get committed. So do join us. We're going to try and do it as much as we can each week. Wednesday or Thursdays, but we'll keep in touch with our social media accounts.
Yeah, it's been one of those. It'll be probably usually Wednesdays, but then when the non-league fixtures come around and there's Wednesday night games that we actually want to get to, we'll do it on a Thursday instead.
We'll try.
We'll try. Don't forget, there'll be more content on the channel, no doubt, over the coming days. If you're of a Leeds United persuasion as well as a non-league persuasion, Brownie and Jay were on last night with a Leeds United programme. You can catch that up on the YouTube as well. We've also had a reaction video earlier on this evening from Gaz, our Bradford City man, referencing the frankly astonishingly good signing of Josh Nerfield from Wimbledon. That's a hell of a signing. I told him to add more excitement into his video. I'm not quite sure he did it, but he seemed pretty pleased. But
He's
that's what
pleased,
Gaz
Gaz.
is. Like, he's never too high, he's never too low.
He's not, but as we all know, he has the glue that keeps us all together. So we cannot discount Gaz and his opinions, which is great to see on the social media.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Stephen Downs will have something from the Division 60B team later in the week as well. Let's end it at that then.
I think we better do, because we better do after his celebrations at the weekend. But less said about that, the better.
From myself and Lou, we'll end it at that, and we will see you very soon next week for another non-league show here on the West Yorkshire Football Show. Take care.